Welcome back, riders. Today is number 3 of 25 days of coasters. Obviously, any coaster in my top 25 is exciting to talk about, but this coaster is especially fun to talk about because it is the complete package. World-class theming with a world-class roller coaster. Today's coaster is VelociCoaster at Universal Orlando's Islands of Adventure. First, the background and the stats. As stated, VelociCoaster is at Universal Orlando's Islands of Adventure Park, located in Orlando, Florida. VelociCoaster is an Intamin multi-launch coaster that opened in 2021. The first launch is 0 to 50 miles per hour in 2.0 seconds, and the second launch is 40 to 70 miles per hour in 2.4 seconds. So naturally, the top speed is 70 miles per hour. There is a 155-foot top hat with an 80-degree drop on the descent. The ride has 4 inversions in total and traverses an impressive 4,700 feet of track. I have been fortunate enough to ride VelociCoaster 48 times across 14 days on resort across November 2022 and September and November of this year. As I alluded to, VelociCoaster is an entire complete package with world-class theming. VelociCoaster is themed as a new roller coaster within the movie world of the Jurassic World franchise. So it's a roller coaster themed to a roller coaster. The presentation of this coaster is fantastic. When you walk into Islands of Adventure, it is sitting directly in front of you across the lagoon. It takes a commanding presence with its top hat and the Mosasaurus roll over the water. There are multiple paths that lead to the ride entrance. You can walk through the Discovery Center from the Jurassic Park franchise, or you can walk across a bridge by this kind of by like the Lost Continent and get some great views of the second half of the coaster. And there is another path between the two I just mentioned. The entrance to VelociCoaster looks fantastic. The top hat is literally right there to the left. They have 2 Velociraptor statues on the top of the building. There's also 2 fires close to those raptors. And there's some ferns nearby. The sign changes colors. It's done very well. If the line is more than 45 to 60 minutes, you will start off with the outdoor queue. This is not themed all that much, like specifically, but it's still very clean and crisp. There are plenty of ferns nearby, and you get some great views of the Mosasaurus roll. You get up right next to it, and you also get really close to the top hat and some good views of that as well. Once you make it back inside, you are in for a real treat throughout the rest of the queue. The inside is lined with all these lights that change color. Their default is like a white or blue, but they will turn orange and red when a train is launched up the top hat. And it specifically turns red when, if you see these 2 screens in the back, there's like a specific video that plays. Once that specific video ends, it goes to like this red kind of scene. It's really cool. When you move further into the room, you get closer to my favorite part of the queue, a real massive statue of the 4 velociraptors from the movie with the top hat also part of the statue behind him. It is very imposing and awesome, especially with the lights I had mentioned, with like the red, orange, white, blue, whatever. Also nearby the statue are the 2 screens that I mentioned briefly. There is a themed video where VelociCoaster is like introduced into Jurassic World, like a fictional one. And then another informative video about like the lockers, the metal detector, exiting the ride, all that fun stuff. Mr. DNA from the movie does like this informative video, so that's pretty cool. Once you leave this section of the building, you have a few straight sections. The first one is nothing to shout at, and the second one is nothing crazy either, as you just pass 4 banners for each of the velociraptors from the movies. The third one is pretty cool though. There are windows here, pictured here, you can see, where the second launch is on the other side in plain sight through the window, and the windows have these like screen effects. So every time a train goes through the second launch, not only do you see the train, but the windows show the 4 velociraptors either chasing the train or they might even take an interest in you waiting for the ride. This is a super cool effect. And there's also these lights. You can see the white one in the picture here. They will turn red when the train is approaching, so that's also very cool. From here, you enter a smaller room where there are some more screens with two shows. One is Dr. Henry Wu from the movies talking about the health and safety of the animals they take care of. That's another fictional, like, themed video. The second video is a shorter version of the same Mr. DNA video that was played by the statue about, like, the metal detectors and lockers, what you can and can't bring on the ride, all that fun stuff. After this room, you encounter two awesome animatronics of velociraptors. They are extremely lifelike and realistic, at least in terms of the fact that nobody has seen a real velociraptor. But they breathe like through their nose, they blink and they move around. It's pretty cool. They're very awesome. After that, you put your things away in the lockers and go through metal detection. From here, you go up some stairs for the last part of the queue. There's this huge screen that's actually made up of 9 smaller screens, but it makes this huge one that shows Claire Daring from the movie explaining Jurassic World newest attraction, the VelociCoaster. And then you have Owen Grady who's comically saying like, "Oh, this is a crazy idea, don't do it, blah blah blah." To be honest, I have actually only been in this room like I think 3 times, maybe 4, because I take an alternative route once you enter the locker room. But I have always enjoyed this show when I have seen it. I will now move on to explaining the theming during the actual ride before talking about like the ride forces, the layout, the elements, the sequencing, all that stuff. After dispatch, you enter a room where the first launch will take place. There are velociraptor enclosures on both sides of you, and you can see like the actual velociraptors through like the walls. There's some audio in the build up to the launch, and you got these lights changing from blue to red and then flashing white and blue once you finally take off. There's also like fog, or I think it's more mist, on the sides before you take off too. And shortly before the launch, you can see the Raptors also take off running next to you. The first half of this coaster is extremely compact and enclosed in what is called the Raptor Paddock. This is filled absolutely to the brim with ferns. You got these velociraptors. I wouldn't say these are statues, but they're more like figures, I guess. They have sound effects that go off when your train rushes by them. There's all these rock formations that you can see in the picture that you fly through and around. The second launch has a similar tunnel to the first launch, just without like the Velociraptor enclosures. It has the same lights that change colors. I think specifically the second launch, they go from blue to red. The second half of the ride does not have the same theming as the first half, but that is expected as the second half is much faster and intense, so it's a lot harder to take in theming when you're going faster and getting pummeled with all these forces. It's still very beautiful in this section though, because you still have a lot of the ferns that you're kind of whizzing by, and a good part of the second half of the ride rides above the lagoon, the water, so it's really cool. The brake run is another tunnel like the launches with the color changing lights, and there's also some audio that plays as you're advancing through the final breaks. So now on to the ride layout. This is a pretty decent first launch. It doesn't have that much bite or force, but it has the cool theming, like the pre-build up to go with it. So overall, I do like this launch. It's not the punchiest or anything, but it's kind of like a theatrical thing more than anything, and it's really cool. This rises up into an Immelman, and this is a weaker moment of the ride, but the exit of the element is pretty cool because it has an awesome head chopper with some of the artificial rock work. Also, if you're sitting towards the back, this is a decent moment of airtime on the exit. This rises up into a dive loop, and I think this is a tale of two stories. If you're sitting in the back, this element is not much to write home about. However, if you're in the front or towards the front, wow, this element shocks me in the front. It is a fantastic moment of airtime and laterals, and your body just like folds when you go through it. You're moving so much, it's pretty cool. The rest of the first half is fairly repetitive, with a series of left and right turns interacting with all the scenery. So I'm not going to go ahead and finish the play-by-play for that. There's a good moment of airtime thrown in there though, so that's of note. The second launch is pretty good, but I would say that it is not excellent. It's definitely more powerful than the first launch, but the acceleration isn't anything too crazy. From here, you rise to the tallest point of the ride in the top hat, and you absolutely need to be sitting in the back for this. The airtime going down the top hat is absolutely bonkers. Sustained ejector while crashing down to earth. Chef's kiss, mwah. This is followed by the zero G stall. This is one of the cooler ones because you fly over a path with no netting below you, so the visuals are pretty cool, but it rides about the same as the one on Tutatis or Pantheon. This is followed by a turn to the right, which eventually leads to like a mini wave turn. So it gets you out of your seat a little bit. It's not super strong, but it is a good moment. This leads to another right-hand turn that eventually rises up into an off-axis airtime moment. I actually think this is a little lackluster if you're sitting on the left side of the train, but if you're sitting on the right side of the train, this is a pretty amazing moment. You move around, you get some awesome airtime. You take a wide right turn and then hit a small airtime hill. It does not offer much, but it does lead to one of the craziest elements in the world, the Mosasaurus roll. And just flat out, I can't describe this. It just tries to eject you into the water below. It's just absolutely nuts, bonkers, you name it. You really have to experience it for yourself. VelociCoaster has one more trick up its sleeve though, giving one more great moment of airtime with like this rising S bend that eventually leads into the final breaks. So yeah, that is VelociCoaster, one of the best and most complete coasters in the world. Have you been on VelociCoaster? If you have, let me know what you think of it in the comments below. Maybe tell me what your favorite part of the ride is. I think it does change person to person. As always, if you're looking for a more in-depth review with some better footage, check out Canopy Coaster's review that I have linked in the description below. And I hope to see you all tomorrow. Push down, pull up, exit to the right. Hope you enjoyed the video, and go have your greatest day yet. Choo choo, bye.